What does an independent film mean for me today? Well, independent used to mean outside the corporations, outside Hollywood, outside the mainstream, which is a very broad term because the independent film can, you know, you would say most films are independent films. Francis Ford Coppola making a movie at $120 million was an independent film. So it doesn't mean in terms of budget, whatever. Since the dawn of time, Ed Wood was making independent films. So, you know, it used to mean something where sort of, it used to have a kind of, you know, a level of quality to it. And, you know, you talk about some of the independent films in the 70s that were made, The Cuckoo's Nest and The Taxi Drivers, etc. But some of them were still studio funded, and some of them were still funded independently, but distributed by studios. You know, so there was a kind of mixture there, and the same in the 90s as well. But today, independent film kind of means everybody. You know, everybody that's no inside no making films in the Hollywood system or the major streamers system. But for me, an independent film, what it really means is completely doing your own thing. And it's not just making the film. It's not just writing, directing, producing. It's not just, for me today, especially today, it's not just making the film and then getting it on a platform like Amazon or Apple TV, etc. That's doable now. That's not where it ends being an independent film for me. Where it ends is building an audience, direct to the audience. No running for the gatekeepers when you've made the film. No trying to get approval, no trying to get picked, no trying to get permission, no using it as a calling card, you know, to get noticed by the industry. But this is that. You know, I remember the interview with Mr. Beast a few years ago. You know, obviously, for anybody that's been living under a rock, Mr. Beast is the biggest YouTube creator in the world. I think he still is. And he was making YouTube videos from when he was young, and I think it was Mr. Beast, and somebody asked him about, you know, were you doing this for a calling card to get work in television? And he goes, no, this is it. I love YouTube. This is it. This is, you know, and now YouTube is the biggest channel in the world, you know. So for me, making films is not it's not a calling card to get noticed by an industry, because the industry's fucking collapsing. It's not going to collapse, but it's having to evolve drastically. And with with technologies like AI, although I'm not completely embracing AI, I'm still working with actors. I'll always work with actors and crews. With AI, you've got a bigger canvas, a bigger paintbrush. You can make a small indie movie look much bigger in production value. Your imagination can fly. So for me, my point I'm trying to get to back to independent film is not just the making of the film, it's not just the releasing it, but it's, for me, it's building an audience and building on that direct to market and building and growing. That's why I'm building the Dolls franchise. I'm doing 5 movies, novels, graphic novels. I'm building on that world, direct to market. And that's what I'll always do. And the only way the industry's going to be interested in you anyway is if you created some heater in yourself. You know, if you've got a ready-made fan base like those guys that done Obsession and Backrooms, whatever. But I'm not interested in that fucking shit. I don't want a calling card again. You know, it's building to direct market, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people at a time, so that I can make my films. You know, get on to the next one. People like the films. You know, they buy into the next one. They buy some merchandise. They can come to events, pop-up screenings, be part of the films. For me, that's total independence, direct to market. You know, without any middle people. Because the minute you go to the mainstream industry and they give you money, or they distribute your movie across the world and help you make it a hit, you're in their pocket. You know, you really are. You know, they're going to start throwing franchises to you for your next films or whatever. And, you know, again, if you make a film and it becomes incredibly successful, right away you've got the pressure on you. You know, if you suddenly make a film and you're in with the studios and in with the industry, then if you've made 100 million, 50 million and 200 million, how the fuck are you going to keep topping that? You know, the Blair Witch filmmakers never kept on topping that. You don't know where they are now. The Paranormal Activity, you know, it's a bunch of sequels, and you know, it's a kind of recipe that it's a double-edged sword. Whereas if you're building your own audience, and you know, and if they really like what you're doing, you know, you'll have some failures, you'll have some stinkers here and there that they like and they don't like. But if they buy into you and you involve them in a way, for me, that's the That's the real goal. That's the real independent, model for me. Every single step of the way to delivering. Nothing's a fucking calling card. I'm not making a calling card. If I can make films for the rest of my life, even if they're smaller films, but again, they don't have to be smaller films because AI is helping, to, even though I don't completely embrace AI, I'm not making AI movies, but it helps in so many fucking ways. Where if you've got a 10 grand movie, it can look like a £1 million movie with the help of AI the way things are going. So why the fuck would I even need Hollywood? Why do I want in those gates? Because they take everything, they own everything, they tell you what the fuck to do, they put the pressure on you. You don't own the rights, you don't own the IP. So for me, that's an independent film. Doing what you want to do, casting who you want to cast, working who you want to work with, involving supporters the way you want to involve them, doing, your posters, trailers, making the movie that you want to make. That's it. That's completely independent for me. That's how I kind of define it at every step of the way, and that's what I'm building with these Dolls movies, and other films that I do in the future as well. And that's what I want to share on this channel as well.